Hey everyone. Okay, so I did film, I recently filmed a current reads and then also my June wrap up, but then I had this moment where I was like, no, okay, I need to film a Romeo and Juliet review, and I didn't have enough space to keep the other two videos, so I deleted those, and we're going to talk about Romeo and Juliet, the Kenneth Branagh stage production from last year, because I just rewatched one of my videos looking for some other content, and in one of my videos I had just seen the stage production, and I talked about how much I loved it and how much I needed to film a review of it, and I never did. And at the time I didn't, because I had like a play hangover, so to speak. Like, I had so many thoughts swimming around in my head that I just really couldn't, I couldn't figure out how to say what I needed to say about this show. And now it's been a year, so it's been long enough that I can, like, I can form thoughts about it and stuff. So yes, that's what this video is going to be, and I'm actually going to make it 2 parts because I just tried to do it and I went on for 15 minutes and was still a ways away from finishing what I needed to say, because it's literally that good. I need to talk about it in detail. But YouTube is doing that weird thing where it's like you can't upload something that's over 15 minutes. So I'm going to just split it and do a part 1 and a part 2. In this first part, I'll set up, like, everyone who was in it and how this was, like, everything that went into this production, and then also I want to talk about the introduction that Kenneth Branagh did to the show, because he did, like, a couple little intro bits for the, live broadcast in theaters, and then in part 2, I'll talk about the performances and what really made me change my mind. Like, what about this production in particular made me change my mind and my perspective about the way that I looked at this story. Because honestly, before I saw this production, Romeo and Juliet was not only my least favorite Shakespeare, it was probably my least favorite play, slash story. I did not get along with it for a really long time, and now that I understand it so much more, I actually really enjoy it. So anyway, what this production was something that Kenneth Branagh put on with, for his theater company. He has his own theater company that I believe is just called, Kenneth Branagh Theater, or Branagh Theater, I'm not really sure. But anyway, he has his own production company, and he, last year, his whole season was put on at the Garrick Theatre in London, and he did several shows, but the ones that were particularly, the ones that were live broadcast were, The Winter's Tale, also Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, The Entertainer, and I feel like there was a 4th one, but if there was, I forget what it was. And then he had maybe 3 or 4 other productions that weren't actually broadcast live. And I remember being really upset when I found out that I had missed Winter's Tale, because Judi Dench played Paulina and Kenneth Branagh played Leontes. And I hope I'm saying that right. So I was really, really upset that I had missed that one. But anyway, so yeah, he did this as part of his season last year, and it was great because he just kind of got everyone from Cinderella to come into this production of Romeo and Juliet. Like, he directed Cinderella, and Lily James played Cinderella in the film, and Richard Madden played Prince Charming, and Derek Jacobi, I can never say his name right, even though he's one of my favorite actors. But anyway, he played the king in Cinderella, and then Patrick Doyle did the music. And so he just took all those people and, like, brought them into Romeo and Juliet, because of course he directed it and produced it, and it was his theater company. And then Lily James played Juliet, Richard Madden played Romeo, Derek Jacobi played Mercutio, which is something I'm going to talk about in the introduction part, or when I talk about the introduction. And then Patrick Doyle again did the music, and I found out after this, like when I did more research about all of Kenneth Branagh's kind of Shakespeare productions before this, with like films and stuff, that Derek Jacobi and Patrick Doyle have actually worked with Kenneth Branagh a lot. So I just thought that that was really great. And the only person who I really, really wish had also come from Cinderella to be in Romeo and Juliet is I really wish that Nonso Anozie, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but anyway, the guy who plays the captain of the guard in Cinderella, who I love him, he's awesome, and I've seen him in like 3 or 4 other things, like Game of Thrones and Conan the Barbarian and stuff. I really wish that he had played the police officer who is always breaking up the fights between the Capulets and the Montagues, because also the way that Kenneth Branagh kind of not redid this, but the way he set it up is this character also had a little bit of a bigger role, so I really wanted him to play that role. But anyway, the guy who did play that role did an amazing job, so then that was okay. And what was I going to say? Yeah, so I was just really excited when I found out that this production was going to be shown in theaters for one night, and I was so glad that I was going to be in town and that it was at the theater that was closest to me. I found out, I bought my tickets like a month in advance, and I was like, Mom, we can't go out of town on July 7th. Like, we have to be in town because I have to go to this. And it was great. And so anyway, Kenneth Branagh also did he did a couple intros specifically for the theater release of this show, and one of them was they got teenagers, they just interviewed teenagers and did a compilation video about what teenagers felt the story of Romeo and Juliet was about and what it meant, which I thought that part was really cool. But the part that I thought was the coolest was when Kenneth Branagh, in his introduction, talked about his choice to cast Derek Jacobi, I'm sorry, please tell me how to say his name, as Mercutio, because that made the character so much older than he is, because he, in the play, we always think of Mercutio as being around the same age or a little bit older than Romeo, but not really out of his generation. And of course, with Derek Jacobi, he's much more of like an older father type figure, and mentor, and it changed the dynamic a little bit, but really not to a significant point. Like, they still had the same relationship, but it was just more of like a fatherly mentor as well as a friend, instead of just the friend part, I guess. And when he was making that decision, he said that the reason why is because he said when he was in college, Kenneth Branagh, that he read the diaries of one of the writers in the 1920s. I want to say it was like Fitzgerald or Hemingway or someone, but I could be wrong on that. I could be very wrong. I will look it up and put the person's name in the description. But anyway, so he was reading these diaries, and apparently what they would do is they would go out at night and just go to the bars and, you know, kind of like we do today. And one night they went out to the bars, he and his friends, and they met this kind of older gentleman who was really, really nice. They got talking to him, and he just had the best stories. So they just kept talking to him for the whole night, and this older gentleman was like buying everybody drinks, and they were just having a blast. So then when the older gentleman left, they immediately went to the bartendress, barmaid, I don't know what you call them back then when they're female, just bartender now, but anyway, they went up to her and they said, who was that? He was so nice and he just had the best stories. And she said, that's Oscar Wilde, and he comes in here all the time. And this was, I think, the last few months of Oscar Wilde's life, and he just went into this bar every night. And yeah, so it was just the last few months of his life. And Kenneth Branagh said that after he read that, he started thinking about it, and he thought that Mercutio's character from Romeo and Juliet, if he had lived long enough, would have had that same kind of personality and would have had that same kind of life where he just got to tell so many amazing stories. And yeah, that he would have basically the same life if he had been able to live that long. And I should have said in the beginning this was going to have major spoilers. So yeah, I just thought that was a really great reason to cast an older actor as Mercutio. And you know, Derek Jacobi, of course, is an amazing actor. So it was a really, really great choice. And real quick, since I'm talking about that, I'll just kind of segue into talking about Derek Jacobi's performance a little bit. I really, really loved his performance because Mercutio is an amazingly funny character in the play, and he had so many great zingers. And you know, sometimes I guess if you're at like a comedy club or something and somebody makes a joke, a drummer will, you know, do the cymbals and you know, I've always thought that was kind of cheesy, but what Derek Jacobi did is every time Mercutio had a zinger, at the end of it he would go "but," and it was the funniest, like, best thing. I was just like, I don't know how you thought of this, but it is brilliant. So, you know, some people might have thought that was cheesy or stupid, but I thought it was fantastic and definitely added to his awesomeness. So yeah, I really, really loved his portrayal of the character. I really loved that the friendship was really still the same, but that there was also this kind of fatherly mentor element added into it, because it made Mercutio a different generation than Romeo. So I thought that was really, really great. And now I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to go into part two. And part two is where I'm going to talk about Lily James and Richard Madden's performances. And also here I didn't talk about the fact that he did... okay, I'll talk about how Kenneth Branagh changed the setting a little bit and how that affected the roles and portrayals and stuff. But anyway, but yeah, I want to talk about that and then their performances and why this production, like how this production changed my views of Romeo and Juliet. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm sorry that I've gone on a bit, but I just really, really loved this production, and it just took me so long to finally get my thoughts together enough where I would have made any sort of sense. Like, if I had tried to film this when I had first seen it, I wouldn't have made any sense at all with what I was trying to say, because my emotions were running so high. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If anyone else got to see it, got to see the live broadcast in cinemas, or if anyone saw it in real life, like if I have any viewers who got to see it, please let me know what you thought. So anyway, thanks, and I'll see you guys in part two. Bye.